Late afternoon light fell in long gold bars across the garage floor, catching the dust and the smell of cut grass. Henry Whitaker set a box of air filters beside the workbench and reached to hang his old blue cap on the hook by the door, the same hook where his son had once hung a Little League helmet. From the kitchen came the murmur of voices, low and tight, a kettle just before boil. A small hand tugged his sleeve. Aiden stood there in a yellow t-shirt speckled with glittering dots. For a second Henry thought it was glitter from school. Then the dots winked in the light and he saw what they were, glass dust. A thin scrape ran across the boy's knuckle, bead of brown already drying. "Grandpa," Aiden whispered, eyes flicking toward the kitchen, "come here. Please." Henry followed him behind the lawnmower and the stacked storage tubs. The side window over the workbench had a hole punched through the lower pane, a starburst rim like an iris without a pupil. On the driveway outside, a towel lay spread flat as if it had been waiting there. A broom leaned against the wall, too neatly. "What happened?" Henry kept his voice even, the way you do with a skittish colt. Aiden swallowed. He held up a tablet with both hands, careful, like it might jump. "Dad made me," he said. "For a video." Henry didn't take the tablet at first, he looked at the boy's face. The eyes were dry, but set a little too wide, like he was holding still so nothing inside him would spill. Henry nodded once and then nodded again, the slow rhythm that used to calm Ryan after nightmares. "Okay," he said softly. "Show me." Aiden tapped play. On screen, the same garage glowed under a ring light balanced on a box. Ryan stood beside the window, relaxed in the particular way people relax when they think a camera makes them look honest. Lana's voice came from off-frame, counting down softly, 3, 2, and then Aiden walked into the light. He wore gardening gloves 2 sizes too big. A screwdriver jutted from his fist. "Push here, buddy," Ryan coached, tapping the corner of the pane. "Burglars don't leave glass inside. It falls out. Okay? And don't be scared. It's just pretend." Aiden in the video pressed the screwdriver, there was a tiny popping sound, shockingly polite, a bead of glass letting go. The pane fell outward onto the towel already spread on the driveway. Lana stepped forward with a dustpan, arranging shards with quick, practiced sweeps like a stylist fixing a scene. "Reset," she said, breathless, smiling too wide. "We'll film the discovering it later." The clip ended on the ring light's hum. Henry felt the air go thin. He closed his hand over the tablet because otherwise it would shake. Around them the garage was familiar, old vise, coffee tins full of screws, the dent in the workbench where Ryan had missed a nail at 12 and cursed and then looked terrified because he'd said it in front of his father. The memory collided with the image of Ryan encouraging his own son to break a window and Henry's chest tightened in a slow, unfamiliar way. The shed door rasped shut behind Henry, muting the house into a faraway murmur. Dust hung in the slanted light like slow snow. He set the big wrench on the workbench, took a breath he could feel all the way down, and pulled the tablet from his jacket. His finger hovered, then tapped the folder labeled Notes. A list opened, plain text, no pretense. "Call script, Lana." Breath shaky but clear. "Say, we just got home, the garage window is broken, our son is terrified. If asked about enemies, my father-in-law Henry has been forgetful, he has a key, he's been acting odd lately. If they ask what he wore last time he was here, blue baseball cap. Keep repeating, we feel unsafe. Do not mention filming. Inventory, high value, Ryan. Old watch, grandpa's, say missing. DSLR camera, say missing. Jewelry box, empty on camera, then put back. Game console, hide in trunk. Laptop, place face down like searched. Scene dress, both. Towel outside window, for glass. Broom, dustpan close by. Leave side gate unlatched. Remove ring light before call. Henry read the line again, my father-in-law Henry has been forgetful, blue baseball cap, has a key. The words were simple and mean and careful. The kind of careful you become only after rehearsing being cruel. Through the shed's small window he could see the hallway table in soft focus, his old blue cap sitting on the dish beside the spare keys, exactly where Habit put it. He heard Lana's voice faint through the walls, counting to herself, practicing cadence. He thought of the towel laid out before the glass fell. He thought of Aiden's brave, dry eyes. He flicked to the next file, night walkthrough, test. It was a short clip of Ryan filming a shaky pan around the living room, narrating in a low, acted whisper, "We didn't touch anything, just documenting." Lana moved props with her pinky finger like she'd read it in a blog, touch lightly so it looks like you're avoiding disturbing evidence. At the end of the clip, Ryan said, "Turn off the ring light. We'll shoot the real one later." He moved to inventory, photos. Pictures they'd taken, the jewelry box open with a dramatic emptiness, the camera strap curled like a sleeping snake, the old watch, Henry's father's, cradled in Lana's palm while she practiced a gasp in the mirror. He didn't feel rage spike, he felt it settle. It sat in him like a stone in a river, the current adjusting its course. A shadow crossed the shed window. Footsteps in the grass. Henry's thumb froze. The footsteps stopped at the hallway table, lingered. Through the glass, Ryan's hand came into view for a second, just the hand, tapping the edge of the blue cap, then moving away. Henry held still until the lawn fell quiet again. He backed out of the files, locked the tablet, and slipped it back inside his jacket. For a full count of 5, he watched the dust and listened. The ring light's faint hum threaded the quiet. Somewhere in the kitchen, a chair leg scraped. He took out his phone and dialed 911. "Emergency dispatch," a woman said, calm, even, the voice you trust at 3 in the morning. "What's your emergency?" Henry's voice surprised him by being steady. "My name is Henry Whitaker. I'm at my son's house," he gave the address. "There's a staged break-in underway. They had my 9-year-old grandson break a garage window on camera. They're preparing a false report and an insurance claim. They've also written a script to blame me. Is anyone injured?" "My grandson's hand is scraped. He's safe right now." "Are the adults present?" "Yes. My son Ryan Whitaker and his wife, Lana. They have props set, a ring light, a towel under the window, a list of missing items. I have a recording on a tablet, shows them coaching the child to break the glass." "Do not confront them," the dispatcher said softly. "Can you stay on the line and step somewhere safe, out of view?" "I'm in the backyard shed," Henry said. He pictured Aiden at the bathroom sink, scrubbing until the water ran clear. "They plan to say I did it. The script mentions me by name, mentions my blue cap and that I have a key." There was a pause, measured. He could hear keys tapping on a keyboard in some office far from his shed. "Officers are en route," she said. "Keep the child out of the garage. If you can, remain where you are. We may need you to meet officers outside." "Understood." "Sir, what's your grandson's name?" "Aiden." "And you said they instructed him to break the window?" "They call it pretend," Henry said, and felt his jaw set. He did it because he trusts his parents. The dispatcher's tone didn't change, but something softened. "Thank you for calling. Stay with me." Inside the house, where Henry couldn't see, Lana paced between the kitchen and the hallway, clutching a printed version of the call script, each bullet point highlighted in yellow. "If they ask who else has a key, we say your dad," she said to Ryan, low and quick, like cramming for a test. Not accusing, just, like, facts. Ryan opened the silver dish, closed it, opened it again. The blue cap sat a foot away, brim frayed from years of sun. He touched it without looking, the way you touch a thing you've seen so often you've stopped seeing it. "We say he's been losing things," he said. "He left the cap last week. He forgets." "We don't have to say he did it," Lana murmured, eyes on the highlighted lines. "We just, let them find their way." Ryan nodded, jaw tight. "Insurance pays. We breathe." Back in the shed, the dispatcher asked Henry to describe the scene in detail. He did, ring light, towel, broom, the exact size of the hole punched in the lower pane. "They practiced," he said when he was done. There's a sheet titled Scene Dress. They wrote remove ring light before call, but it's still on. Officers will approach without sirens, she said. When they arrive, please meet them out front and provide the video. Keep the tablet with you. Do not signal the adults. The shed door rasped shut behind Henry, muting the house into a faraway murmur. Dust hung in the slanted light like slow snow. He set the big wrench on the workbench, took a breath he could feel all the way down, and pulled the tablet from his jacket. His finger hovered, then tapped the folder labeled Notes. A list opened, plain text, no pretense. Call script, Lana. Breath shaky but clear. Say, we just got home, the garage window is broken, our son is terrified. If asked about enemies, my father-in-law Henry has been forgetful, he has a key, he's been acting odd lately. If they ask what he wore last time he was here, blue baseball cap. Keep repeating, we feel unsafe. Do not mention filming. Inventory, high value, Ryan. Old watch, grandpa's, say missing. DSLR camera, say missing. Jewelry box, empty on camera, then put back. Game console, hide in trunk. Laptop, place face down like searched. Scene dress, both. Towel outside window, for glass. Broom, dustpan close by. Leave side gate unlatched. Remove ring light before call. Henry read the line again, my father-in-law Henry has been forgetful, blue baseball cap, has a key. The words were simple and mean and careful. The kind of careful you become only after rehearsing being cruel. Through the shed's small window he could see the hallway table in soft focus, his old blue cap sitting on the dish beside the spare keys, exactly where habit put it. He heard Lana's voice faint through the walls, counting to herself, practicing cadence. He thought of the towel laid out before the glass fell. He thought of Aiden's brave, dry eyes. He flicked to the next file, night walkthrough, test. It was a short clip of Ryan filming a shaky pan around the living room, narrating in a low, acted whisper, we didn't touch anything, just documenting. Lana moved props with her pinky finger like she'd read it in a blog, touch lightly so it looks like you're avoiding disturbing evidence. At the end of the clip, Ryan said, turn off the ring light. We'll shoot the real one later. He moved to inventory, photos. Pictures they'd taken, the jewelry box open with a dramatic emptiness, the camera strap curled like a sleeping snake, the old watch, Henry's father's, cradled in Lana's palm while she practiced a gasp in the mirror. He didn't feel rage spike, he felt it settle. It sat in him like a stone in a river, the current adjusting its course. A shadow crossed the shed window. Footsteps in the grass. Henry's thumb froze. The footsteps stopped at the hallway table, lingered. Through the glass, Ryan's hand came into view for a second, just the hand, tapping the edge of the blue cap, then moving away. Henry held still until the lawn fell quiet again. He backed out of the files, locked the tablet, and slipped it back inside his jacket. For a full count of 5, he watched the dust and listened. The ring light's faint hum threaded the quiet. Somewhere in the kitchen, a chair leg scraped. He took out his phone and dialed 911. Emergency dispatch, a woman said, calm, even, the voice you trust at 3 in the morning. What's your emergency? Henry's voice surprised him by being steady. My name is Henry Whitaker. I'm at my son's house, he gave the address. There's a staged break-in underway. They had my 9-year-old grandson break a garage window on camera. They're preparing a false report and an insurance claim. They've also written a script to blame me. Is anyone injured? My grandson's hand is scraped. He's safe right now. Are the adults present? Yes. My son Ryan Whitaker and his wife, Lana. They have props set, a ring light, a towel under the window, a list of missing items. I have a recording on a tablet, shows them coaching the child to break the glass. Do not confront them, the dispatcher said softly. Can you stay on the line and step somewhere safe, out of view? I'm in the backyard shed, Henry said. He pictured Aiden at the bathroom sink, scrubbing until the water ran clear. They plan to say I did it. The script mentions me by name, mentions my blue cap and that I have a key. There was a pause, measured. He could hear keys tapping on a keyboard in some office far from his shed. Officers are en route, she said. Keep the child out of the garage. If you can, remain where you are. We may need you to meet officers outside. Understood. Sir, what's your grandson's name? Aiden. And you said they instructed him to break the window? They call it pretend, Henry said, and felt his jaw set. He did it because he trusts his parents. The dispatcher's tone didn't change, but something softened. Thank you for calling. Stay with me. Inside the house, where Henry couldn't see, Lana paced between the kitchen and the hallway, clutching a printed version of the call script, each bullet point highlighted in yellow. If they ask who else has a key, we say your dad, she said to Ryan, low and quick, like cramming for a test. Not accusing, just, like, facts. Ryan opened the silver dish, closed it, opened it again. The blue cap sat a foot away, brim frayed from years of sun. He touched it without looking, the way you touch a thing you've seen so often you've stopped seeing it. We say he's been losing things, he said. He left the cap last week. He forgets. We don't have to say he did it, Lana murmured, eyes on the highlighted lines. We just, let them find their way. Ryan nodded, jaw tight. Insurance pays. We breathe. Back in the shed, the dispatcher asked Henry to describe the scene in detail. He did, ring light, towel, broom, the exact size of the hole punched in the lower pane. They practiced, he said when he was done. There's a sheet titled Scene Dress. They wrote remove ring light before call, but it's still on. Officers will approach without sirens, she said. When they arrive, please meet them out front and provide the video. Keep the tablet with you. Do not signal the adults. As he ended the call, Henry heard the bathroom door open and the quick patter of small feet. He cracked the shed door and called softly, Aiden? Aiden's head appeared around the corner, hair damp where he'd splashed himself. I washed more, he whispered, holding up clean hands. Good man, Henry said. Go to your room and close the door. Put on your headphones. If anyone asks, tell them I went to the shed for a wrench. Aiden nodded, eyes searching Henry's face for something he could hold on to. Henry gave him a small smile he hoped would be enough to cross that little distance. The boy vanished again. Henry lifted the big wrench and walked back toward the house, the tool heavy and honest in his grip, the tablet heavier against his ribs. He stopped at the hallway table, set the wrench down as if that had been his only purpose all along, and let his fingers brush the blue cap's brim. He didn't take it, he only straightened it, making its presence deliberate. In the kitchen doorway, Ryan looked up, eyes flicking to the wrench, then to the cap, then back to his father. Find what you needed? Yes, Henry said. He kept his voice the way he kept his tools, clean, oiled, reliable. You two all right? Lana smiled quick and bright. We're fine. Strange day. Strange, Henry agreed. He stepped onto the porch and stood under the maple, where the shade felt several degrees cooler. The street lay in that soft hour between chores and dinner, sprinklers hissed somewhere, and a neighbor's dog made a single questioning bark. Henry folded his hands behind his back and waited for the shape of patrol cars to appear without fanfare at the corner, no drama, just procedure. Inside, the ring light hummed. Lana read the script again, smudging the edge with her thumb. Ryan stared at the window as if willing it to become something it wasn't, random, unlucky, a bad story with a clean conclusion. Under the maple, Henry counted his breaths and held on to the smallest, most useful thought he had. The truth, once recorded, has a way of steadying its own voice. He didn't think about what the next hour would do to his son's pride. He didn't think about the old watch touched by hands that had never earned it. He kept his mind on the simple sequence the dispatcher had given him: meet, show, step back, and the feel of Aiden's small, clean hands pressing trust into his own. At the end of the block, tires whispered. 2 unmarked cars turned in, quiet as decisions already made. The ring light cast a clean white halo on the living room's cheap rug, bleaching color from the fibers until everything inside the circle looked too innocent to be true. Lana adjusted the dimmer with a nail, counting under her breath. 30%, 40, no, 35. Daylight balance. She tapped the phone screen and watched her face in selfie mode. The light erased the tiredness until only an alert, frightened woman stared back. On the coffee table, she'd laid out her tools like a makeup artist before a show, printed call script with yellow highlighter stripes, a spiral notebook labeled inventory, 2 ballpoint pens, and a pair of reading glasses she rarely needed but thought made her look more serious. She read the first line again. "We just got home, the garage window is broken, our son is terrified." She practiced the breath between broken and our, a small catch that didn't sound theatrical when she did it right. Across the room, Ryan crouched by the TV console, sliding the game system out and feeding its cable into a backpack. He moved briskly, not pausing long enough to let doubt settle. "Console goes in the trunk," he said. Laptop face down on the couch like they rifled it. "Leave the old DSLR strap hanging off the shelf." "Not the DSLR," Lana said automatically. "It's my good camera." "We're not keeping it," Ryan said, patient the way people get when they've practiced closing a door on every objection. "We're saying it's gone. It'll be in the garage cabinet so we can find it later if anyone asks." She exhaled through her nose, nodding. "Fine." On the far end of the hallway, Aiden sat at his desk with headphones clamped over his ears. Music whispered from the pads, too low to hear, symbolic more than blocking. He held a pencil he wasn't using and stared at a paper where he'd sketched the garage window as a rectangle of jagged lines. Every few seconds his eyes slid to the door, then to the corner where his backpack leaned ready, then back to the drawing. He placed the pencil down exactly parallel to the paper's edge, as if straight lines could keep a day from coming apart. In the backyard, under the maple, Henry stood with his phone to his ear and the dispatch line still open. The trunk of the tree was cool against his back. "Yes," he told the calm voice, "the ring light is still on." A dog barked twice down the block, a sprinkler ticked rhythmically like a metronome keeping a slower, older time. He watched the front walk because he needed one place to keep his eyes while everything else insisted on being watched too. Inside, Ryan hefted the backpack and set it beside the hallway table. The silver dish with spare keys winked in the ring light's spill. Beside it, Henry's blue cap sat brim forward, the fray at the edge catching the light like a thin halo of its own. "We have to keep this simple," Ryan said, more to himself than to Lana. "No drama. Facts, not accusations. We didn't see who did it. If they ask who has a key, we tell them. We're not pointing at Dad. We're just giving context." Lana's eyes flicked to the printout where Grandpa, blue cap, spare key was underlined twice. "Context," she echoed. "Right." She picked up the page and held it to the light as if the right angle could make the words less ugly. "It didn't. What if they ask why we didn't call immediately? We should have called immediately." "We were shaken," Ryan said. He'd already prepared the line, a drier version of empathy. "We walked through the house to make sure no one was inside. We called as soon as we felt safe." "We're still walking through the house," Lana said, glancing around the staged living room and feeling the lie wrinkle under her palm. "We'll call now." "After we fix the angle," Ryan said, moving the ring light a hand's width to the left so the garage door, visible at the end of the hall, wasn't in frame. "We show nothing on purpose. We're just two people living in a mess that happened to us." She stared at him. "You sound like a podcast." He smiled without it reaching his eyes. "It's just how you survive." On the wall, a digital frame rotated slowly through happier images, Aiden at 7 holding a sparkler, Lana with a cake, Ryan on a beach the summer before the mortgage reset. Lana tapped the frame off with a quick, guilty motion. Her phone chimed. A text from a number labeled mortgage servicing, payment overdue. Please remit immediately to avoid additional fees. She flipped the phone face down as if that silenced anything. From his pocket, Ryan's phone buzzed too. He glanced at the screen, a voicemail from a number he knew too well. Collections, Amherst. He swiped it away and looked toward the hall, toward the little room where his son sat with headphones pretending not to hear the world. "Let's get this over with," he said. In Aiden's room, the music inside his headphones ended. He didn't press play again. His hands pressed on the armrests of his chair, palms damp. He could count from the ring light's hum when his mom dimmed it, high, low, high. He could hear the way Dad's voice changed when he practiced sounding worried, softer, more careful, like they talked to him when he had a fever. He could hear the pantry door open as Mom moved the old watch box from one shelf to the other to make a future discovery feel natural. He thought of the way the glass had popped like a soap bubble, except real bubbles don't leave blood. "Under the maple," the dispatcher said. "Officers are 2 blocks away." "Thank you," Henry said. He looked at the quiet street. A man from number 12 jogged by, earbuds in, glancing at the house the way people do when they sense something they won't name. Across the way, a porch light clicked on early, casting an oval on concrete. The world kept moving forward, as if it didn't know a small important thing was about to tilt. Inside, Lana stood in the kitchen doorway, ring light's edge kissing her shoulder, and lifted the phone to chest height. She didn't dial yet. She inhaled through her nose, exhaled to a count of 4 the way a yoga video had once taught her. "We just got home," she whispered, practicing. "The garage window is broken, our son is terrified." The second time, she removed the word just. The third, she added a pause before window. The fourth, she slipped in a tremble that wasn't entirely practiced. "Don't overdo it," Ryan said, softer. He watched her and remembered a thinner, easier year, the way they'd once filmed couple challenges at this same coffee table and laughed at themselves before the views plateaued and the comments got meaner. He remembered the lunch where his manager had said the phrase positioning lost like it was weather, then told him they didn't have hours anymore. He remembered Henry's envelopes and the way help had tasted like failure. He placed the laptop face down on the couch and hated the moment enough to wish it would pass, no matter the cost. "Ring light off when you call," he said, as if saying it now would make it true later. He checked the time on the oven clock. "Do it now. Before Aiden asks why we're whispering." In her room, Aiden didn't ask. He pressed his thumbs together and made a small tent, as if a roof could be held up by will. The ring light hummed. "Okay," Lana said, and pressed the phone's side button to wake it. The bright screen lit her face with a truthless glow. "Now." In the yard, Henry took one step from the maple into sunlight. On the corner, 2 unmarked cars turned without fanfare, the afternoon stillness barely disturbed. He saw the first driver's hand lift toward a radio, then lower. He thought of the line in the notes, "Remove ring light before call," and pictured the bright, circular reflection in the hallway mirror that would end up in someone's report. Small things counted later. They always did. In the living room, Lana's thumb hovered over the keypad. Her breath snagged once, caught between fear and the ritual of a performance. Ryan watched her hand, watched the screen, watched the hallway where the blue cap sat a foot from the keys. He didn't see Henry beyond the glass. He didn't see the slow, inevitable choreography that had started the moment a boy with glittering cuts on his knuckles said, "Grandpa, come here." Lana pressed 9. Then 1. Her phone vibrated, an incoming call flashed across the screen, shoving her half-dial to the top. "Ryan, garage cam." For a second the room's light seemed to tilt. "Why is it calling me?" she asked, startled. Ryan blinked. "What?" The call connected to itself, speaker picking up the garage feed with a half-second lag. In the looped echo, the ring light's hum turned into a thin, metallic whine. Lana fumbled, stabbed at the screen, killed the call. She laughed a tiny, shaky laugh. "Nerves," she said, as if missed dials could be charming. Ryan rubbed his face, annoyed at the crack in the moment. "Focus." She nodded, found the keypad again, and inhaled. On the sidewalk, the first officer's shoe touched the first square of the front walk, as quiet as a thought finally arriving at the words for itself. They came quiet, no sirens, just the whisper of tires and the soft bark of a radio clicking to life and dying again. Under the maple, Henry lifted a hand. The first officer, a broad-shouldered man with a neat mustache and sleeve creases you could cut paper on, stepped out and introduced himself as Officer Mendoza. His partner, Sinclair, followed, a woman with calm eyes and a notebook already open. "You're Mr. Whitaker?" Mendoza asked. "Yes." Henry held the tablet with both hands, as if its weight decided how steady he stood. "My grandson is inside. He's safe in his room. The video is on here." Mendoza's gaze touched the house, the open side gate, the towel visible through the garage's side window like a white tongue. "Let's take a look first, out here." He angled the tablet so both officers could see. Henry tapped play. The garage flickered onto the screen, eerily present, the ring lights hum, Ryan's coaching voice, Aiden's gloved hands, the polite pop of glass. Lana's broom arranging the shards. "Reset," she said on the recording, "too bright. We'll film the discovering it later." No one spoke for a beat after it ended. A bird complained from a wire. Sprinklers hissed 2 yards down. Mendoza exhaled a small, invisible sigh. "All right," he said. "Thank you for calling." He glanced at Henry. "We'll keep this calm. Please stay right here unless we ask you in." "Where's the child's room?" "Back hall, last door on the right," Henry said. "He'll do what you tell him." Mendoza nodded, tapped his body camera, the soft double chirp marked it recording, then walked to the door. Sinclair peeled off toward the garage, eyes flicking across details, the broom's angle, the glass mostly outside on the towel with a delicate sprinkle inside, the unlatched gate, the ring light haloing the hallway in sterile white. Her gloved finger hovered near the dimmer without touching it. The hum vibrated up her arm like a nervous system. Mendoza knocked. The door opened on Ryan's careful smile, the kind men wear when they want to look harmless and useful at once. "Officers, hi. We were just about to call." "Evening," Mendoza said, voice neutral. He inclined his head toward the living room. "We received a call about a possible break-in. Mind if we come in and talk?" "Sure, of course," Ryan said, stepping back. Lana stood behind him, phone in hand, call screen still open to the keypad as if a finger could prove intention. She backed up a step, then another, already crying with her mouth before her eyes joined in. "We just got home," she started. "The garage window." "We'll get there," Mendoza said gently, not unkind. He scanned the room as he entered, ring light center stage, coffee table laid with papers and a spiral notebook labeled inventory, a silver dish with spare keys, and beside it Henry's blue cap, brim forward, familiar as a family photograph. He didn't touch anything. "Is your son home?" "In his room," Lana said. "He's scared." "Officer Sinclair will check on him," Mendoza said. "Sir, ma'am, let's talk here for a moment." Sinclair moved down the hall, boots making a deliberate nothing of sound. She paused at the bathroom, towel damp and neatly hung, a smear of past pink at the edge of the sink, and then tapped lightly on the last door. "Aiden? I'm Officer Sinclair. Can I come in?" The door opened a crack. Aiden's face appeared, clean and serious, headphones around his neck like a life ring. He looked past her and then up, measuring her the way children do, for kindness, for patience, for truth. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded fast, then slower, uncertainty peeling off in thin, reluctant strips. "Mind if we sit?" Sinclair asked, gesturing to the edge of his bed. When he nodded again, she did, careful to keep her knees level with his. "Your grandpa's outside. He's safe. You're safe. We're going to ask some questions today. You only have to answer what you know. No guessing. Okay?" His mouth tugged, not quite a smile. "Okay." Back in the living room, Mendoza kept his hands visible, palms open, a performance of safety that was also practice. "Tell me about your day, starting from when you left the house." Ryan stared straight ahead. "We ran errands. Came back. Saw the window." He gestured vaguely, not pointing at anything in particular, which the body camera would notice anyway. Who was the last person to leave the house before you? Mendoza asked. Us, Ryan said. All of us. This morning. Together. And who has keys? Mendoza allowed his eyes to drift toward the dish. Us, Lana said quickly. And, Ryan's dad has one. He forgets sometimes. You know. With age. She bit her lip, as if sorry to have said even that much. We don't think, we're not saying. Mendoza's face didn't change, but the pause lengthened just enough to register. He looked down at the coffee table. The call script lay half-tucked under a magazine, highlighted lines peeking out. He slid a gloved finger to the page and revealed the top. Call script, Lana. We just got home, the garage window is broken, our son is terrified. If asked about enemies, my father-in-law Henry has been forgetful, he has a key, he's been acting odd lately. If they ask what he wore last time he was here, blue baseball cap. A muscle worked in Ryan's jaw. Lana's shoulders pinched inward. We found a similar document outside, Mendoza said, true enough when outside meant outside of their performance. He lifted the page with care, slid it into an evidence sleeve Sinclair held out when she returned to the room, then gave a small nod. Only Henry, watching from the threshold, would understand, this matters. Sinclair resumed her place at Mendoza's side. Aiden's fine, she said to them all, and then, to the officers, low, hand abrasion, washed. He says he was told not to tell Grandpa. Lana's eyes flashed, fear, then calculation. He must have misunderstood. We were upset. Things we say. Of course, Mendoza said, as if the conversation were about weather. He turned slightly, so the ring light's glow sat in the center of his camera's field. Is that for social media? I do some product videos, Lana said, aiming for a reasonable tone she'd tried on 100 times in other contexts. I didn't realize it was still on. Would you mind turning it off? Mendoza asked. It will make my camera adjust less. She moved to the dimmer and dialed it down. The room lost its surgical brightness. Shadows returned to faces, putting everyone back in the same light. On the porch, Henry waited in the strip of shade. He could hear voices but not words. A neighbor wandered by, dog in tow, and offered the split-second eye contact of someone who will remember this scene at dinner and choose a neutral phrasing. Something happened at the Whitakers. He caught sight of Aiden at the hall end, small profile in the doorway, then the boy was moving toward him, an officer 2 steps behind. Can I go outside? Aiden asked Sinclair, hand already half lifted to Henry. You can stand with your grandpa, Sinclair said. Stay where I can see you. Aiden stepped onto the porch and folded into Henry's coat like a letter into an envelope, crisp and immediate. Henry's hand went to the back of the boy's head by reflex, and he felt the damp warmth of just washed hair. I'm right here, he said softly, and knew the microphone would catch it and put it somewhere official later, which didn't change the way the boy's shoulders uncoiled a notch. The human record mattered more than the electronic one. Inside, Mendoza set the tablet on the coffee table between them. Mr. Whitaker shared a video, he said. We're going to view it together and you can tell me if we're misunderstanding anything. He tapped play. Ryan didn't look. Lana did, at first, then not all the way, eyes sliding from screen to wall, screen to ceiling. Aiden's small, gloved hands pushed, the pane popped, the towel caught. Reset, Lana on video said. We'll film the discovering it later. When it ended, no one reached for the tablet. It made the small device feel larger than any paper in the room. Were you planning to call 911? Mendoza asked into the quiet. Yes, Lana said quickly. We were scared. We wanted to make sure no one was still here. Who placed the towel outside? Sinclair asked, voice professional, not hard. Who moved the broom to the doorway? Ryan's mouth opened, closed. He stared at his hands and seemed for a second to not recognize them. We panicked, he said softly. We were going to clean up. He stopped as if the thread had cut. Mendoza didn't press the silence into a confession. He simply let it sit until it shaped the air. Then he slid the call script sleeve halfway across the table with 2 fingers, the highlighted lines bright even without the ring light. This mentions Mr. Whitaker. It also mentions a blue baseball cap. His eyes went to the dish by the keys, to the cap with its familiar fray. Do you understand how this looks? Lana's lips trembled. We're drowning, she said, the truth of that ringing cleaner than anything else she'd said. We thought, if we could just, she swallowed, shoulders trembling. We didn't mean to hurt Aiden. It was pretend. Pretend doesn't cut skin, Sinclair said, not unkind. On the porch, the afternoon tilted toward early evening, a thin breeze lifted the brim of Henry's cap where it sat inside on the dish, a motion no one felt but the camera caught. Aiden tightened his grip and spoke into Henry's coat, muffled. Am I in trouble? Henry shook his head into the crown of the boy's hair. You told the truth, he said. The truth is never trouble. Mendoza stood. All right, he said. Here's what's going to happen. We're going to secure the scene. We'll photograph the window as is. We'll collect the document on the table and the video Mr. Whitaker provided. We'll take preliminary statements from both of you separately. Then we'll make a determination. Ryan nodded, tiny, like a man agreeing with the ocean. Lana wiped at her eyes, leaving a clean stripe through her mascara. Sinclair moved to the doorway and called to Henry, Sir, if you have any other footage or documents, we'll take them now. Henry passed her the tablet, reluctant to let it go even while knowing it had to. Their fingers didn't touch. Aiden looked up, eyes searching Henry's face for a forecast. Henry gave him the only weather report he could, a steady, small nod. The kind you use when the road is bad and you want the passenger to know you see it and you're not taking your foot off the wheel. Inside, body cameras recorded the unglamorous work, photos of glass patterns, the angle of a broom, the ring light's plug still warm, the call script sliding into plastic, the spare keys glinting like little, indifferent moons. Words were written, times were noted, the outline of the next hour drew itself the way lines appear on paper when you lay a ruler down, straight, impersonal. When Mendoza finished his photographs, he looked at Ryan and Lana and let the professional tone hold. One more question before we separate you, he said. Who told the child to say don't tell Grandpa? No one answered. The camera caught the answer anyway, 2 faces, 2 separate flinches, one plan unraveling at the same seam. Mendoza didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Sir, ma'am, stand up, please. Ryan rose first, a half inch at a time, the way men stand when they hope stillness will turn into reprieve. Lana followed with small, careful movements, fingertips smoothing the hem of a blouse that didn't need smoothing. Sinclair stepped in close, speaking evenly as she drew the cuffs from the pouch at her belt. Ryan Whitaker, you are under arrest on suspicion of attempted insurance fraud, filing a false report, and endangering the welfare of a child. You have the right to remain silent. Her voice found the groove of practiced language and stayed there, clear, respectful, final. Mendoza read the same rights to Lana. The ring light, now dark, reflected both officers and both parents in the blank TV screen, a silent, black mirror of 4 figures and 1 white circle. Ryan's hands went behind his back without argument. The cuffs clicked once, then once more, snug. He closed his eyes at the second click as if a door had shut in a house he'd known since childhood and he was on the wrong side of it. Lana's breath stuttered, the first real panic rising now that the choreography wasn't hers anymore. Can we, she started, the sentence searching for a verb it could live with. Our son. Aiden is with his grandfather, Sinclair said. He's safe. She wasn't unkind, she was immovable. Mendoza angled his body so the hallway was blocked from Aiden's view. We'll walk out calmly, he said. No talking to the child right now. You'll have a chance to make calls from the station. They moved toward the door together, the room shrinking around their shoulders, the coffee table with the call script sleeve half tucked beneath a magazine, the silver dish of keys, the blue cap sitting brim forward, harmless as a prop. Henry saw it all from the porch, saw Lana glance at the cap as if it might yet perform a trick, saw Ryan not look at anything at all. On the threshold, Ryan lifted his eyes to Henry. For a second, the old lines of his face were visible again, the boy who'd split his lip on the driveway and insisted he was fine, the teenager who'd hidden a report card and gotten it over with in a rush, the young father who'd held a newborn awkwardly and promised to figure it out. All of them flickered under the man being escorted to a patrol car. "Dad," he said, and in the single word Henry heard accusation, plea, and the sour tang of humiliation. "You wrote my name into it," Henry said, barely above a whisper, not to shame him but because truth needed space. "You put me in the script." Ryan stared at him, then down, as if the floor might offer an easier conversation. He didn't answer. He stepped toward the car when Mendoza did, and the cuffs flashed once in the low light like bare metal always does when it's where it shouldn't be. Neighbors noticed without calling it noticing. A porch light clicked on. A dog walker slowed, then picked up pace, eyes front. Somewhere a grill lid clanged shut. The world shifted a degree and then pretended it hadn't. On the porch, Aiden pressed closer into Henry's side, face buried in wool, his whisper a thread. "Are they going to jail forever?" "No," Henry said. He kept his voice low and ordinary, as if answering a homework question. "But long enough for grown-ups to talk about what's right." Lana turned her head at that, about to say something that would make it worse. Sinclair gently touched her elbow and guided her down the steps. In the back seat, Lana's face reflected in the window for a second, mascara smudged, mouth open on a word she didn't say. Then the door shut and the reflection became neighborhood again. A social worker arrived in a separate sedan, moving with the practiced softness of someone who enters after the crash. She crouched to Aiden's height, badge on a lanyard flipping against her sweater. "Hi, I'm Miss Tan. I know this is scary." She glanced at Henry. "Is it all right if he stays with you tonight?" Henry nodded before the question finished. "Yes." Miss Tan's smile was small and honest. "I'll need a few signatures and to see where he'll sleep." She looked at Aiden. "You get to pick the blanket." Aiden nodded hard, as if a task could anchor him. He didn't look toward the cars again. Inside, Sinclair gathered what needed gathering, the tablet, the printed script, photographs of the window and the neat towel below, a close-up of the ring light's plug still warm. She wrote times and tidy numbers and slid the keys dish 2 inches to photograph the dustless circle beneath, the way a missing thing leaves a mark even when it stays. Mendoza stood by the door with the patience of someone who's learned how long people require to feel their life change. "Mr. Whitaker," he said quietly, "we'll have more questions later. Tonight, keep the boy with you. Don't discuss details with him. Let him sleep." "Thank you," Henry said. The words were inadequate for the fact of 2 unmarked cars and a social worker and the thin new shape of his family, but they covered the moment with the civility it needed to not tear. He packed a small bag for Aiden from the hallway closet, pajamas, a toothbrush with a superhero on the handle, the worn stuffed fox that had migrated to the top shelf months ago and never quite retired. In Aiden's room, he added the sketch of the garage window from the desk, rolling it carefully. He left the blue cap where it was, its frayed brim pointed toward the door like a weather vane. He felt the urge to take it and resisted it, a decision made without a speech. On the way out, he flicked off the hall light and locked the door with the key he had promised himself not to give back too quickly again. Henry's house smelled like old coffee and wood polish and the lemon soap he'd used for 30 years. He unfolded the couch into a bed, tucked hospital corners tight the way his mother had taught him, and let Aiden pick a blanket. The boy chose Henry's heavy quilt and then asked, voice small, if the fox could have a corner to hold. "It can have as many corners as it wants," Henry said. He kept his tone light, and then, when Aiden lay down and turned to face the wall, he sat in the armchair and stayed. The room dimmed to street lamp glow. The hum of his own refrigerator sounded louder than any ring light. "You can sleep, Grandpa," Aiden murmured, not looking back. "I'll sleep when you do," Henry said. The old line, used for fevers and storms, worked again. Aiden's breathing stumbled, then found a rhythm. Only when the boy's shoulders finally sagged did Henry ease the tablet from his jacket and open the call script again. He read every line like a sworn statement, not because he didn't already know it but because saying a thing silently can make its edges sharper. Forgetful. As a key. Blue baseball cap. He pictured the dish by the door and the way Ryan's hand had hovered above the brim. He pictured the towel's patience, the practiced sweep of a broom, the checklist for staging. He didn't feel the old heat he used to feel when he and Ryan argued. He felt something colder, more surgical, an assessment of where the damage ran and what to do to stop the bleeding. He set the tablet down and pulled a manila folder from the drawer of the sideboard. Inside was a single document, already notarized, a standby guardianship form Henry had filed after a bad night months ago when Ryan had said words he couldn't unsay and Aiden had slept in Henry's spare room with his shoes still on. He laid the form on the table, not triumphant, not relieved, simply prepared. The paper looked plain under the lamp. He tapped it once with a forefinger, the way mechanics sometimes tap a part that will matter tomorrow. His phone buzzed with a number he didn't know, unknown caller, then stopped. A minute later, a text from an officer, "They're being processed. You'll be contacted about statements in the morning. Keep your phone on." He wrote back, "Understood. The boy is asleep." The reply came quick, "Good. That's the most important thing tonight." Henry stood, circled the room once like a man checking doors before bed, and paused at the front hall. His own blue cap hung on its hook, brim as frayed as the one at Ryan's. He touched it, thought of fingerprints and cameras and what people say when panic makes them practical. He left it where it was. Back in the living room, Aiden had rolled so that one foot stuck out of the quilt, small toes pale in the lamp's spill. Henry tucked them back in with a gentleness that surprised him and sat down again, hands folded, the way he'd learned to sit in the pew when he didn't have words. Outside, a car passed, nothing to do with them. The night settled. The house made its tiny old bone sounds. On the table, the standby guardianship form waited without impatience. On the couch, a boy breathed. In another part of town, a son stared at a wall he had earned and did not want. Henry watched the clock tick toward midnight and felt the outline of the next day take shape, not in plans, not yet, but in facts. He would answer the phone. He would dress. He would make toast too dark the way Aiden liked it because it made butter taste more like butter. He would tell the truth again to whoever asked and then again after that, because repetition is how you teach muscle memory and family both. He reached over and dimmed the lamp until only a soft circle remained, gentle as a night watch. The room became quiet in the right ways instead of the wrong ones. Cuffs had clicked. Now there was quiet. He let it hold. The refrigerator hummed like a low, steady engine. From the pull-out couch, Aiden's breathing rose and fell under the old quilt, one foot occasionally nudging free and then tucking itself back, as if the body could make promises the mind couldn't keep. Henry sat at the kitchen table with the lamp turned low, the standby guardianship form laid square in front of him, and his glasses halfway down his nose. He wasn't reading anymore. He was keeping watch. The phone rattled against the wood at 2:14 a.m., the sound too loud for the hour. Unknown caller. He glanced at the living room. Aiden didn't stir, then answered. "Dad?" Ryan's voice was thinned by distance and fluorescent lights and the hum of a line recorded somewhere. "They said I get one call." Henry's hand closed over the receiver a little tighter. "Are you hurt?" No, a quick exhale that tried to be a laugh. "Just humiliated." Silence stretched, measuring what could be said. Ryan filled it first, words tumbling, bumping shoulders as they came. "Look, it's a misunderstanding, okay? We panicked. We were going to clean it up and call. The officers, they got the worst version of it. I need you to help me fix this with the insurance, at least. If the insurer doesn't push it, maybe the rest. You want me to tell them it was an accident?" Henry asked, voice level. "I want you to be there," Ryan said quickly. "There's going to be a reconstruction. Their investigator left a message earlier. Lana submitted the online claim draft days ago, okay? They'll send someone to assess damage. If you're there when we walk them through, if you tell them you just found the window and we overreacted." Henry let the sentence break on its own. "What time?" Morning, Ryan said, relief crowding in too fast. 9. We'll be out by then. Bail, paperwork. I don't know. Just put things back how they were. Don't move anything in the garage. And, Dad? Don't be dramatic. Please. From the couch, Aiden rolled and murmured. Henry waited until the boy settled again. I'll be there, he said. He didn't add what for. Thanks, Ryan breathed, and then, softer, the old unguarded boy surfacing for a second. I don't know how it got this far. You wrote it down, Henry said. That's how it got this far. He ended the call before the apology had a chance to rehearse itself. The house resettled around the click. Streetlight pooled on the rug like rainwater. Somewhere outside, a car door thudded, not theirs. Henry rubbed his eyes and stood, his body remembering the hour from years he'd spent waking to bottle feeds and fevers and shift changes. He opened the sideboard drawer and rooted through the practical archaeology of a life: rubber bands, a carpenter's pencil shaved flat on two sides, spare batteries, a sandwich bag of screws. At the back, under a roll of painter's tape, he found the small white puck his neighbor Linda had given him at Christmas with a joke about losing your keys less and your patience more. He turned the tracker over in his palm. The battery still had charge. He paired it to his phone, named it Blue, and muted its chirp. On the app, a dot blinked into being, then held steady. He slid from his chair with the slow care of a man sneaking past sleep and carried the cap from his own hall hook to the table. With 2 careful fingers, he peeled back the sweatband and nested the tracker inside, snug as a coin in an old magician's palm. The fabric lay flat again, innocent. He set the cap on the hall stand by the door, exactly where habit would put it, with the brim facing the way Ryan liked to see it when he came in. He took 3 steps back and looked with a detective's patience and a father's ache. Nothing in the scene declared itself a trap. The app on his phone showed Blue exactly where the cap sat. He walked to the kitchen and watched the dot move with him. He walked back and watched it return. The shape of tomorrow shifted from dread to lines on a map. The temptation to call Mendoza at that hour faded as quickly as it arrived. He typed instead. Henry Whitaker, Ryan called. Says insurer's investigator is coming at 9 a.m. Claims he wants a reconstruction. He asked me to be there and keep things as is. I will be. I've placed a tracker in my blue cap on the hall stand. If he moves it, you'll have a path. I'll keep Aiden here. He put the phone face down and waited for regret. It didn't come. What came was the memory of a boy asking if he could stay the night if Mom got mad, and the way the ring light hummed like an appliance that didn't know it was a witness. At 6:03, just before dawn broke the sky in thin milk blue, the phone buzzed back. D.T. Mendoza, understood. We can coordinate with SIU from the insurer. They're sending an investigator at 9, name is Hart. We'll be in plain clothes nearby. Do not confront. Let them do what they intend to do. We'll document. Text me if they approach earlier. Henry, copy. Aiden still asleep. I'll keep him here. D.T. Mendoza, thank you, Mr. Whitaker. This helps keep him out of it. Henry made coffee and burned the first batch of toast the way Aiden liked, edges a little blackened, butter pooling in the crisp valleys. When the boy patted in, hair a tangle of possible storms, Henry slid a plate across without speeches. Do we have to go back? Aiden asked around a bite, eyes flicking to the door like it could summon scenes. Not right now, Henry said. Today you and I will go out back and water the planter. And you'll pick a puzzle, and I will lose to you on purpose and pretend not to. Aiden's mouth bumped into a smile that knew about pretending and let it be kind this time. He ate. At 7:40, Henry called Mendoza, voice low. If they're out on bond, they'll want to get there before anyone else, he said. Ryan asked me not to move the garage. That means he wants to move it himself. We're staged 2 blocks down, Mendoza said. Hart will text you separately. Leave the front door locked. If they knock, tell them you're waiting for the investigator. If they have a key, he let the conditional do its own work. Henry hung up and walked the mental route: hall stand, cap, key dish, side door, garage. He moved through his little house, collected the pinhole camera the detective had dropped off at dawn. "If you're comfortable," Mendoza had said, and set it high on a shelf in his garage, angled to catch hands, not faces, because dignity matters even when evidence does too. He tugged at the camera's lip until it looked like a knickknack that had been there forever. On his phone, the live view showed the rectangle of the repaired pane, the workbench scar, a dark smile, the towel he had folded and put away last night. By 8:15, the neighborhood had shrugged into mourning. A jogger waved. A trash truck groaned past, indifferent. Aiden built a small fortress of puzzle pieces on the coffee table and looked up every few minutes as if a sound might require bravery. At 8:37, Henry's phone pulsed, a single cool ping from the tracker. The dot named Blue moved 3 houses down, then paused, then drifted closer, like a thought making up its mind. A minute later, another text. DT, Mendoza, gray sedan. 2 occupants. They're out. Henry lifted a finger to his lips for Aiden and nodded toward the back door. They stepped into the yard, the maple making a dapple over their heads. From there, Henry could see just enough of his own hall through the kitchen window to know what mattered. The tracker dot crossed the curb and came into the house. Blue sat on the stand. Then Blue moved. Not fast. Familiar. A hand lifting what it had always lifted. Henry felt the smallest, purest anger he'd felt in weeks, not the kind that wants to strike, but the kind that says, "I see you doing what you wrote you would do." He didn't move from the grass. He let the map draw itself: hall stand to side door to garage. On the phone, the live view opened like a second window in his palm. The camera watched the workbench with the blank patience of machines. A shape cut the frame: shoulders, not face. Hands. The blue cap's brim dipped into the corner of view as if to check how it would look when found. A key glittered, was set down, picked up, set down again, indecision leaving prints. Across the street, an unremarkable sedan idled. Behind its glass, 2 plainclothes officers wrote time down in tiny block numerals. Henry stood in his yard with his grandson beside him and let the plan become evidence. He did not savor it. He did not gloat. He felt, instead, the grim satisfaction of a nail finally meeting the board it was meant to hold. At 8:59, a third car turned the corner and rolled to a stop in front, white, with a magnetic placard that read Hart and Associates, claims. A woman in a windbreaker stepped out carrying a camera bag and a clipboard. She looked at the house as if it were a story that would insist on telling itself badly without help. Hart texted as she walked up the path. "I'm here. I'll knock. Let me start with you. Then I'll ask them to walk me through." Henry slipped his phone into his pocket and opened the back door for Aiden. "Inside, champ," he murmured. Aiden nodded and went to the couch, the fox under his arm. Henry straightened his shoulders, glanced once at the hall stand through the kitchen window. The cap was gone from its hook, the dish held a space where a key had been, and opened the front door to the investigator with a face he saved for surgeons and judges, polite, steady, unafraid of clarity. "Mr. Whitaker?" Hart asked, offering a hand that was firm without claiming too much. He shook it. "Thanks for coming," he said, and stepped aside so she could enter into a house that looked, at first glance, like any other on the block. Behind them, in the quiet garage, the camera watched a blue brim settle into frame like bait. In Henry's pocket, a small tracker dot held still, then shivered as the cap found its mark. The map of the morning drew itself in lines only one side knew existed. Ryan's look at Henry slid off like water. "Fine." They started at the hall. Hart photographed the stand, the dish, the empty circle where keys make a ring only slightly darker than the rest of the metal. She noted the ring light, unplugged, and snapped a wide of the living room that caught the coffee table splay, inventory notebook stacked now under magazines like a secret hiding under another secret. She spoke as she worked, a running tape for later, entry neat, no prying on latch. Stand shows disturbance, absent cap and key. At the garage door, she paused and stepped aside. "You first, Mr. Whitaker." Show me what you saw. Henry opened the door. The garage smelled like motor oil and last season's grass. Morning light came long and flat across the concrete. He pointed to the repaired pane, the scatter of tiny glitter in the threshold that a broom had missed, the towel folded on a shelf where someone had put it away wrong. He didn't look at the corner because he didn't need to. He knew what was there from the way his phone sat patient on the map and from the way Ryan's shoulder went strange for a second, too still, like muscle around a lie. Hart nodded and took a single mark on her sheet. Thank you. She turned to the couple. All right. Show me, please, exactly how you came home, what you said, what you noticed. Lana inhaled and adopted that soft, frightened tone she'd practiced, the one she could slip into like a jacket. We just got home, she began, in the garage window. She reached for Ryan's arm, guiding both of them 2 steps forward so the camera, the clipboard, and the story would have the same view. Ryan's eyes went to the corner because of course they did. The blue cap waited, brim angled like a pointing finger. The key lay beside it, gleaming clean as a conscience never used. He let surprise rise into his face, a little late, a little loud. Is that? He cleared his throat for effect. That's my dad's cap. Hart didn't move. She didn't need to. Somewhere outside, a sedan door clicked, and then another. The side gate latched and unlatched with a sound that meant witnesses, not intruders. Ryan's gaze ticked that direction and back. Please don't touch anything yet, Hart said, even, almost kind. Just show me how you would have, and where you would have stood. I'll photograph first. In Henry's pocket, blue pulsed once, a status blink, nothing dramatic, then held steady. He watched Ryan's hand hover over the brim and stop, a jitter he recognized from his son's teenage lies, back when hesitation was still a teacher and not a habit. Hart raised her camera. The shutter made its small greedy sound, tch, as it captured cap, key, glass, hands. She didn't rush. She framed the scene, then pulled back for context, the way one pulls back from a painting to see the trick of the light. Behind them, in the doorway, Mendoza's voice arrived the way good timing does, calm and in the right register. Ms. Whitaker, Mr. Whitaker, he said, stepping in with Sinclair at his shoulder, plain clothes, badges only now visible, we're going to ask you not to move anything else. Lana turned too quickly, her practiced surprise landing in the wrong octave. Officer, we were just helping. We know, Mendoza said, and there was no sarcasm in it. Only the plainness of a man who had already seen the footage, already felt the small, mean thrill of a plan imagining itself smarter than time. He pointed, not at faces, but at lines. We have your online claim draft from last week. We have last night's video. We have your printed call script. His finger shifted to the corner. Now we have this. Sinclair lifted a phone. On its screen, a map traced a narrow blue path from Henry's address to this garage, front hall stand a side door to this precise patch of concrete. She didn't show it to the couple. She showed it to Hart, who looked once and made a small mark with her pen, something like a period at the end of a long, careful sentence. Mr. Whitaker, Hart said to Henry without taking her eyes from the scene, for the record, is that your cap? Henry looked at the brim and felt nothing righteous, only tired. Yes, he said. It lives on my hook. And do you typically leave it in your son's garage? No. Thank you. Lana tried a new door. We were going to call you, she told Hart, turning toward Mercy as if insurance had any to give. We just wanted to make sure our son didn't see. We were cleaning. We must have. Hart's camera made that small tch again, each click a fence post and a line that led somewhere inarguable. Mendoza's radio murmured softly into his shirt, and he answered without looking away. He didn't reach for cuffs. Not yet. The reconstruction was still in its last, necessary act, the part where hands reach for what they planted in a story meets the object that refuses to lie for it. Go ahead, Hart said, voice quieter now, to Ryan. Show me what you would have said when you found that. Ryan's hand hovered again over the cap, almost graceful in its indecision, like a dancer at the last count before the music changes. Then his fingers closed on the brim. The garage camera caught the contact. The tracker stayed still. The air in the room shifted, that tiny drop before rain. And for the second time in 2 days, a plan that thought it owned the narrative forgot the oldest rule of objects: they remember what hands have done to them. Ryan's look at Henry slid off like water. Fine. They started at the hall. Hart photographed the stand, the dish, the empty circle where keys make a ring only slightly darker than the rest of the metal. She noted the ring light, unplugged, and snapped a wide of the living room that caught the coffee table splay, inventory notebook stacked now under magazines like a secret hiding under another secret. She spoke as she worked, a running tape for later, entry neat, no prying on latch. Stand shows disturbance, absent cap and key. At the garage door, she paused and stepped aside. You first, Mr. Whitaker. Show me what you saw. Henry opened the door. The garage smelled like motor oil and last season's grass. Morning light came long and flat across the concrete. He pointed to the repaired pane, the scatter of tiny glitter in the threshold that a broom had missed, the towel folded on a shelf where someone had put it away wrong. He didn't look at the corner because he didn't need to. He knew what was there from the way his phone sat patient on the map and from the way Ryan's shoulder went strange for a second, too still, like muscle around a lie. Hart nodded and took a single mark on her sheet. Thank you. She turned to the couple. All right. Show me, please, exactly how you came home, what you said, what you noticed. Lana inhaled and adopted that soft, frightened tone she'd practiced, the one she could slip into like a jacket. We just got home, she began, in the garage window. She reached for Ryan's arm, guiding both of them 2 steps forward so the camera, the clipboard, and the story would have the same view. Ryan's eyes went to the corner because of course they did. The blue cap waited, brim angled like a pointing finger. The key lay beside it, gleaming clean as a conscience never used. He let surprise rise into his face, a little late, a little loud. Is that? He cleared his throat for effect. That's my dad's cap. Hart didn't move. She didn't need to. Somewhere outside, a sedan door clicked, and then another. The side gate latched and unlatched with a sound that meant witnesses, not intruders. Ryan's gaze ticked that direction and back. Please don't touch anything yet, Hart said, even, almost kind. Just show me how you would have, and where you would have stood. I'll photograph first. In Henry's pocket, blue pulsed once, a status blink, nothing dramatic, then held steady. He watched Ryan's hand hover over the brim and stop, a jitter he recognized from his son's teenage lies, back when hesitation was still a teacher and not a habit. Hart raised her camera. The shutter made its small greedy sound, tch, as it captured cap, key, glass, hands. She didn't rush. She framed the scene, then pulled back for context, the way one pulls back from a painting to see the trick of the light. Behind them, in the doorway, Mendoza's voice arrived the way good timing does, calm and in the right register. Ms. Whitaker, Mr. Whitaker, he said, stepping in with Sinclair at his shoulder, plain clothes, badges only now visible, we're going to ask you not to move anything else. Lana turned too quickly, her practiced surprise landing in the wrong octave. Officer, we were just helping. We know, Mendoza said, and there was no sarcasm in it. Only the plainness of a man who had already seen the footage, already felt the small, mean thrill of a plan imagining itself smarter than time. He pointed, not at faces, but at lines. We have your online claim draft from last week. We have last night's video. We have your printed call script. His finger shifted to the corner. Now we have this. Sinclair lifted a phone. On its screen, a map traced a narrow blue path from Henry's address to this garage, front hall stand a side door to this precise patch of concrete. She didn't show it to the couple. She showed it to Hart, who looked once and made a small mark with her pen, something like a period at the end of a long, careful sentence. Mr. Whitaker, Hart said to Henry without taking her eyes from the scene, for the record, is that your cap? Henry looked at the brim and felt nothing righteous, only tired. Yes, he said. It lives on my hook. And do you typically leave it in your son's garage? No. Thank you. Lana tried a new door. We were going to call you, she told Hart, turning toward Mercy as if insurance had any to give. We just wanted to make sure our son didn't see. We were cleaning. We must have. Hart's camera made that small TCH again, each click a fence post and a line that led somewhere inarguable. Mendoza's radio murmured softly into his shirt, and he answered without looking away. He didn't reach for cuffs. Not yet. The reconstruction was still in its last, necessary act, the part where hands reach for what they planted in a story meets the object that refuses to lie for it. Go ahead, Hart said, voice quieter now, to Ryan. Show me what you would have said when you found that. Ryan's hand hovered again over the cap, almost graceful in its indecision, like a dancer at the last count before the music changes. Then his fingers closed on the brim. The garage camera caught the contact. The tracker stayed still. The air in the room shifted, that tiny drop before rain. And for the second time in 2 days, a plan that thought it owned the narrative forgot the oldest rule of objects: they remember what hands have done to them. Ryan's fingers closed on the brim. The garage camera saw contact. Hart's lens caught the slight indentation where thumb met fray. Mendoza saw the way a man looks at an object that was supposed to rescue him and now might drown him. The blue brim tilted, and with it the last line of deniability tipped, too. Hold there, Hart said, quiet as a surgeon. She leaned in, not touching, and took 2 close frames, TCH, the cap suspended an inch above the concrete, a key catching a blade of light like a small, obedient star. Okay, she added, stepping back. Set it down exactly how you found it, which is how you are holding it now. Ryan froze. His hand hovered, then retreated a fraction, then obeyed. The cap returned to the corner of the frame with a care he hadn't given it the first time. A tremor lived in his wrist. Walk me through your words, Hart said, voice evenly professional. What did you say? Lana inhaled the practiced breath. We just got home, she whispered, too soft for the room. She cleared her throat and tried again, stronger. We just got home, and the garage window is broken, and our son is terrified. Hart took the sentence like a clerk takes a note. And then? We saw the cap, Ryan said. The line that should have sounded like shock came out as memory. We saw this. He gestured to the key. His eyes flicked to Henry, fast, defiant, pleading, a coin tossed and caught wrong. Henry didn't speak. In his pocket, the tracker app showed blue perfectly still, exactly where Ryan had placed it to be found. On the phone's live view, the pinhole camera kept its blank watch over hands and objects. There was a strange peace in the precision of it, no need to infer, no angle to argue. Things were where hands had set them. Machines had witnessed. No one needed poetry. Who moved the towel last night? Hart asked, changing lanes without signaling, a test of reflex. It's been folded and put up. That's not how I would expect to find it if you called immediately. We tidied, Lana said, too quickly. We panicked. You tidied, Hart echoed, no judgment in it, only a scaffolding she intended to climb later. Mendoza's radio murmured, a low, private sentence, and he answered without moving his eyes from the corner. Copy. Then, to the room, let's all stay exactly as we are. Ms. Whitaker, Mr. Whitaker, I'm going to ask a few clarifying questions for my report. Lana nodded, relief and fear breaking across her face in the same small wave. Of course. Did you instruct your son to break the window? Mendoza asked. Silence. Then, it was pretend, Lana said, as if the adjective could undo the noun. Who placed the towel under the broken pane before it fell? Ryan stared at the towel now folded wrong on the shelf. I did, he said, the words almost a shrug. So no one would get hurt. Who wrote the call script that mentions Mr. Whitaker, a blue cap, and a spare key? Lana closed her eyes, then opened them. I did. Mendoza turned his wrist a fraction so his watch faced him. He noted the time. He didn't say thank you, confession isn't a favor. Hart kept working as the questions unspooled, her camera drinking the room in pieces, the sharp edge where new pain met old putty, the faint glitter of glass on the threshold, the scuff on the floor where a shoe had pivoted, reconsidered, pivoted back. She spoke in short, factual lines for her recorder, building a skeleton to be fleshed and later, reconstruction underway. Subject touches planted cap. Key repositioned from dish to garage floor at unknown time prior to arrival. Prior claim draft dated earlier week. In the doorway, Sinclair shifted a half step to the left. The move blocked Aiden from the sight line. The boy had drifted forward to the hall like a moth to the frame of a light. She angled her shoulder just enough to make a wall of herself without looking like one. "Hey, buddy," she said softly over her shoulder, "can you show me where your grandpa keeps the cookies at his house? I'm going to write it down so I remember." Even now, the question was a bridge. Aiden withdrew, drawn back by the ridiculous responsibility of cookie knowledge. "Ms. Whitaker," Hart said, eyes dropping to her clipboard, "your online claim draft from Tuesday lists a DSLR camera and an antique watch among missing items. Where are those now?" "They were misplaced," Lana said, wincing at how weak the word was in her mouth. "We found them." "When?" Hart asked. "This morning," Ryan said. "We put them back." "Before or after you called the police?" Hart asked. "We were about to call," Lana said. "Then the police arrived." "Which is it?" Hart asked, voice still gentle, like someone coaxing string from a knot. Lana's shoulders sagged. "After," she said. "After." Hart wrote the word down the way one writes a date, exact, unexcited. Mendoza's hand lifted to waist height, palm open. "Don't move," he said, "to all of them or to the air." Sinclair stepped into place on the other side of the workbench with the calm exactness of someone setting a pane of glass. "Mr. Whitaker," Hart said, looking now at Henry, for completeness, "did you place your cap in the garage?" "No," Henry said. He thought of saying I placed a tracker in it, but this was not his stage. He kept to the spine of the truth and left muscles and skin for later. "I left it on the hallway stand last night. It was there when I went to bed." Ryan half laughed, a small scrap of bravado floating up, already sinking. "We're really doing this." "We're really..." "Doing what?" Mendoza asked, not unkind. Ryan didn't answer. Hart lowered her camera. "All right," she said. "I've seen enough to proceed with my report." She capped her pen, the gesture firm. "At this time, I'm marking the claim as under special investigation. That means the file is frozen. No payments, no advance, no repairs authorized. The carrier will pursue recovery of any costs incurred by the company for this response. There may be additional questions for you from counsel." The words hit Lana in the face before they reached her ears. "What does that mean?" she asked, as if a different arrangement of language could soften concrete. We just needed." "It means," Hart said, a softness creeping in around the edges because there was a child in the hall and an old man beside the fridge and there are only so many cold things you can put into a warm room, "this is no longer an insurance matter alone." She turned to Mendoza and gave a single small nod. The baton passed, invisible and absolute. Mendoza took a half-breath, then spoke in the tone of a man closing a chapter not because he wanted to but because pages only turn one way. "Ms. Whitaker, Mr. Whitaker," he said, "please place your hands where I can see them." Ryan's chest hitched, fight wanting to live and finding no oxygen. Lana's hands rose, palm out, nails clean and useless. "We're not resisting," Ryan said. "We're not." "No one said you were," Mendoza replied. He stepped in, not hurrying, not dragging. "At this time, you're being detained for evidence tampering." He looked at Lana. "And for coercing a minor to participate in the staging of a crime." The words didn't echo. They settled. Sinclair moved like a tide to Ryan's side, metal flashed, quick and bright. Hart turned slightly, framing a long shot that took in the corner, the cap, the key, the repaired window, and the human arrangement that gave it meaning. Aiden made a small sound in the hall, a breath pressed too tight by a rib cage. Sinclair heard it and spoke toward the doorway without turning her head. He's all right, she said. He's with your grandpa. It wasn't for Ryan's comfort, it was for the boys. Mr. Whitaker, Hart said to Henry, lowering her clipboard now, I'll follow up with you this afternoon. I'll also email you a copy of my preliminary notes. You should expect contact from our counsel regarding any restitution the company will pursue. Her eyes softened the way professionals let themselves soften only in the corners. You did the right thing when you called. Henry nodded, not from pride but relief that the next sentence did not require him to invent it. Dad, Ryan said, cuffed, the word against a mouth that didn't know how to shape it today, please. It wasn't a request with a noun. It wasn't anything with an object. It was 2 syllables that meant undo this, and I didn't think we'd get here, and I still expect you to fix it. Henry looked at his son and thought of a boy knuckling blood from a split lip and insisting he was fine, of a teenager smudging ink over a report card like smog over a skyline, of a man promising to figure it out and then figuring out the wrong part. He didn't say I love you because that would be heard as I'll erase this. He said the only sentence the moment could hold without lying. I'll take care of Aiden. Mendoza angled the couple toward the door. The garage exhaled, the smell of oil and dust and summer grass giving up a notch. Hart took one last frame, wide, quiet, documentary, and stepped aside. They walked out the way people walk out of rooms that will reassemble themselves without them. In the kitchen, the refrigerator kept purring, a small, faithful machine continuing its small, faithful job. In the hallway, Aiden pressed his hands into the pockets of his sweatpants and watched the floor because the floor was something he could control by not falling. Henry crouched so his eyes were level with the boys. Pancakes when they leave? He asked, voice making room for ordinary. Aiden nodded too fast and then slower, like a dial finding its station. With the dark edges, he said. With the dark edges, Henry agreed. He put a hand on the back of Aiden's head, familiar as a doorknob in a dark room, and stood as the front door clicked shut behind officers and investigator and the morning's idea of mercy. Hart lingered a half-second on the porch, writing a last timestamp. The air smelled like wet concrete and cut-hose water. She glanced at Mendoza. You'll want the tracker logs in the garage stills, she said. I'll send the lot. We'll take them, Mendoza said. He glanced past her to the side yard where the maple threw shade onto a narrow strip of grass. You ever get used to this part? He asked, not really asking. No, Hart said, and tucked the pen into the coil of her clipboard like a blade back in its sheath. But you get better at naming it. In the kitchen, Henry poured batter onto a hot pan and let it spread. The edges curled dark the way Aiden liked, the way he had asked, the way small, exact wishes can be granted in a world where large ones fail. On the hall stand, the dish shone with a clean, empty circle. In the garage, the blue cap waited where it had been set, evidence now, not habit. Reconstruction had done what it promises to do when people tell on themselves without knowing they're speaking, it rebuilt the moment honestly. Outside, tires whispered away. Inside, a spatula slid under a pancake and flipped it clean. The cap sat in the corner like bait that didn't know it was bait, the key gleamed beside it, too clean for a floor that knew oil and dust. On Henry's phone, the dot named blue stilled and stayed, a tiny pulse against a map that had already remembered the hand that moved it. Hands where I can see them, Mendoza said, not loud, not slow, just the speed that closes a door. Sinclair stepped wider, making herself a wall between the garage and the hallway where Aiden's shadow hovered. Hart didn't lower her camera. She kept taking pictures in pairs, close, then context, cap brim, key teeth, the faint scratch in concrete where something had been nudged and nudged back. Each TCH of the shutter felt like a nail going into a board, not dramatic, but permanent. Ryan tried a smile that had gotten him out of smaller messes. Come on, he said, palms half raised. We were helping. We didn't move anything. We were. Mendoza angled his body, not letting the words get momentum. We watched you set the items, he said. On camera. There's an investigator here. There's a tracker path from the hall stand to this corner. There's last night's video. And there's your own online submission from Tuesday listing items you later found. You can stop narrating. Lana's chest rose and fell in a sharp rhythm that broke words into pieces. It was a mistake, she blurted. We panicked. Panicking is dropping a glass, Sinclair said, tone even. This is staging evidence. She slid an evidence envelope from her pocket and nodded to Hart. The investigator held the cap by the brim through fresh nitrile, turned it once for the lens, then lowered it into the bag. The key went next, tagged with time and place, the weather noted in a tidy block at the corner of an evidence form, overcast, light wind, 9:17 a.m. A dusting tech, summoned by text while the scene was still forming, stepped in behind them and brushed a fine grate over the garage latch and the cap's crown. Ridges appeared like a photograph in a tray. Mr. Whitaker, Hart said without looking up, please confirm on video, that cap is yours. It is, Henry said. The words felt like he'd put his name on a brick. Ryan's laugh frayed. He set us up, he said to Mendoza, finding a shape for his anger. He planted it. He's been weird. Entrapment is when the police induce you, Mendoza said, still not unkind. What you're describing is your father leaving his property where it always sits and you moving it to frame him. That's called evidence tampering. It's simpler than the word you want. For a heartbeat there was only the sound of the camera, the whisper of powder on metal, the small, important notes of the day being taken down in a way that would outlast anyone's version. Then Lana's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, skittering an inch on laminate. The screen lit, preview banner pushing through her lock screen before she could snatch it, Children's Regional Billing, new statement available. The words flashed and were gone, one of those casual digital announcements that think every house is okay. Sinclair's I caught it and moved on, but she wrote the exact phrasing in her notebook. Not for now. For later. Ms. Whitaker, Mr. Whitaker, Mendoza said, stepping closer, you're under arrest for tampering with evidence and for coercing a minor to participate in the staging of a crime. He turned a fraction so the body camera would see both faces when he added, you have the right to remain silent. The Miranda rolled out smooth as a road tarred 100 times. When he finished, the cuffs came, metal and unavoidable. Ryan didn't fight, he sagged into them like a man setting down a weight he'd been carrying wrong. Lana cried the small, angry tears of someone who ran out of rehearsal time in the middle of opening night. From the hall, Aiden made a sound he swallowed halfway and pressed his forehead to the door jamb. Henry didn't call his name, he stepped into the line of sight and lifted 2 fingers in the scout's promise he'd taught the boy at 7, I see you. I'm still here. The boy's shoulders dropped a notch. Mr. Whitaker, Hart said to Henry, lowering her camera now, I'll need to inventory the dish in your hall and photograph the dust ring where the key sat. We'll also take a still of the stand as of last night, if you have any security footage, doorbell, anything like that. I don't, Henry said. But I have the tracker log. We'll collect it, she said, and her pen wrote tracker export requested in a column where every line ended in an action. On their way out, Lana turned, wrung-out eyes catching on Henry. He's your grandson, she said, grievance swapping in for remorse. You can't let them. He's my grandson, Henry said, not raising his voice. That's why we're here. Outside, the neighborhood tried not to watch. A curtain eased back. A dog's bark stopped halfway. The air had the wet smell of a hose left running. Hart stood with the evidence tech on the porch and printed a property receipt for the bagged cap and key. She handed Henry the duplicate. His name recorded in 3 places made the paper heavier than it was. Back inside, Ms. Tan arrived again with a binder under her arm and a comm that didn't wobble. She sat on the edge of the couch, eye level with Aiden, and went through the safety plan in a voice that belonged in a school library. Tonight you stay at Grandpa's. You don't have to tell anyone the story again unless a grown-up with a badge asks you and I'm here. If you feel wobbly, you tell Grandpa and he will call me. You don't have to answer the phone if it's Mom or Dad. That part is my job for now. Aiden nodded, solemn. Can the fox come? The fox is legally required, Ms. Tan said, and wrote fox in the margin of a form because paperwork could sometimes decide to be kind. When she asked Henry if there were any legal documents we should know about, Henry slid the standby guardianship from his folder, the notary stamp catching the low light. Miss Tan read, impressed without saying so. "This makes the next hours easier," she said. "Thank you." Mendoza reappeared in the doorway as if on cue. "We'll need copies," he said. "And Mr. Whitaker," he paused, choosing words that wouldn't feel like a pat. The tracker was smart. "Clean. You didn't move the cap into the garage, you let the plan show itself. That distinction matters." "It felt like a betrayal," Henry said. "I made it into a record." Mendoza nodded once. Records outlast feelings. Hart hovered with her clipboard, less official now that the scene was boxed. "I have to warn you," she said, looking at Henry and then at the boy and then back, "when an SIU tags a file like this, it can create an industry flag. Any future claims tied to their names will be scrutinized across carriers. It's not punitive, it's protective." "Protective of who?" Henry asked, but he knew. She didn't answer. By late morning, the house had the empty echo that follows official exits. The ring light stood unplugged, the coffee table looked indecent without its pile of papers, the garage smelled faintly of graphite from the dusting powder. Henry washed 2 plates in a skillet and left them to drip. A voicemail arrived from a number with no name. He let it play on speaker at the sink, eyes on the window. Lana's voice, tinny with detention and desperation. "Henry, it doesn't have to be like this. We were desperate. You know Ryan. He gets ideas. He thought he could fix it. Please, don't let them take Aiden away. Please. We'll say it was our fault and you didn't know. Just call me back." He ended it before the words could learn a new trick. Another call, this one from a number labeled Amherst Collections. He let it ring into nothing. A text from a lawyer whose card he'd been given months ago. "If you need representation for the child's interests, call me." He saved the number. At noon, Hart emailed a secure link, preliminary photo set plus scene notes. The thumbnails marched in precise little rows: cap, key, window, dish, dust ring, claim draft date stamp. One frame made Henry stop, a crop of Lana's printed call script, highlighter bright over "if asked who might have a key, Henry." Under it, in pencil, a fainter edition: "if they ask about money, medical bills." He hadn't seen that handwriting at the table. On the photograph, the graphite was plain. He zoomed in. The word medical curved the way Lana made her lowercase d, a loop that felt too pretty for the sentence it sat in. He thought of the phone banner he hadn't meant to read, Children's Regional Billing, and a cold, new anger licked his spine. He didn't jump to it. He made a sandwich. He sat with Aiden and lost, deliberately, at a puzzle that was too easy by design. He waited for the sun to tilt. When the doorbell rang again mid-afternoon, it was a courier with an envelope, notice of claim freeze from Hart's company and a victim notification with a case number from the police. The paper smelled like toner and cardboard and ending. He signed where it told him to and kept both receipts. As the house settled into evening light, Henry stood in the garage alone and looked at the corner where the cap had been and at the repaired pane that would always look a hair newer than the others. The pinhole camera's tiny red LED winked once and went black as the battery finally gave. He unplugged the ring light, coiled the cord, and set it gently on a shelf as if to say, "Tools aren't guilty, people are." He checked his phone one more time, not because he didn't know the dot would be where he left it but because certainty had become its own kind of comfort. Blue was at the evidence locker now, a little flag on a grid that did not care about anyone's pride. He closed the app. From the living room, Aiden's voice floated, small and ordinary, haloed by television. "Grandpa, the fox won't sit up." "I'll prop him," Henry called back. He took one more look at the corner where the trap had sprung and walked toward the sound of a child asking for a joke that wasn't a test. Behind him, in the kitchen where Sinclair's quick hand had noted it and moved on, the notification light on Lana's phone blinked a steady, patient green no one would press yet. New statement available. 3 words. A line that pointed towards something deeper than broken glass and a staged cap. The first trap had sprung. Somewhere just off stage, a second one had already been set. By late afternoon the house had settled into the quiet that follows officials, papers squared, chairs pushed in, the ring light coiled like a harmless snake on a shelf. Street lights started early, thin and pale, as if unsure the day would stay gone. Aiden lay on the rug building a wall of puzzle pieces and then knocking it down with the stuffed fox's nose, a private physics experiment in cause and effect. Henry sat at the kitchen table with the laptop open, glasses off, thumb rubbing the edge of the standby guardianship form as if it were wood that needed finishing. An email banner slid into the corner of the screen, Hart and Associates, preliminary photo set plus notes. He clicked. Thumbnails marched in tight ranks: cap, key, dish, dust ring, pane, broom. The notes were clean, almost cold, claim flagged for SIU. Prior online claim draft timestamp, Tuesday 8:43 p.m. Cross-reference with inventory spreadsheet shows subsequent edits Wednesday 11:17 p.m. Notation added at 11:19 p.m. If asked about money, medical bills. Hart's parenthetical at the end, handwriting change visible on printout. He zoomed. The pencil loop of Lana's D curved in soft flourish inside medical. He blinked and saw again the lock screen banner he hadn't meant to read on her phone that morning: Children's Regional Billing, new statement available. His mouth dried. He scrolled to the bottom of Hart's email. A second line glowed there in plain text that felt anything but, also, found care options application.pdf on claim upload cache. Name field autofilled to Aiden Whitaker. Guardian/guarantor, H. Whitaker. Confirming with hospital SIU. Henry stared at the line until the letters stopped swimming. The room seemed to narrow, the refrigerator's hum got louder. In the living room, Aiden made the fox bounce along the puzzle ledge and whispered, "Don't fall," and in the kitchen Henry's Hart looked around for a railing. The phone buzzed. "Hart, caller ID Mr. Whitaker?" "It's Hart." "I saw your notes," Henry said. He kept his voice flat. A flat voice doesn't spill. "We pulled metadata from the draft claim portal," Hart said, efficient as she had been in the garage. "Your daughter-in-law's login uploaded a partially completed care options application. It's a hospital credit/charity form. The guardian/guarantor field lists Henry Whitaker with your address. There's a saved attempt to add you to the Children's Regional Online Billing Portal as a responsible party." "To add me?" Henry asked. He heard how stunned he was and wondered when that had happened. "Yes," Hart said. A soft keystroke sounded through the line. "I'm on with their SIU liaison on the other line. We're seeing an account created last week under Aiden's profile. It shows 2 logins from a device registered to a Wells home network." She hesitated. "That's your son's ISP, correct?" "Ryan Wells," Henry said. The name sat poorly in his mouth. "Yes. We can't see clinical data," Hart went on carefully, "but the billing summary shows a new guarantor ad request at 11:21 p.m. Wednesday. H. Whitaker, relationship guardian, address matches yours. The request wasn't processed yet, flagged for verification because of the age mismatch. That verification would likely have sent paperwork to your address today or tomorrow." Henry's eyes went to his front hall where the mail basket sat under the hooks. He imagined an envelope addressed to him asking him to sign a debt belt around his grandson's small waist. "They were going to make me pay his hospital bill," he said. "And then cite medical bills as motive for financial distress," Hart said softly. "To humanize the claim. We see it sometimes in desperate files. It doesn't excuse anything." Henry thought of the tiny cut on Aiden's knuckle, how clean it had been, how bravely the boy had presented it. Was there another visit? He heard his own restraint and didn't recognize it. Something that generated that statement. "SIU says an urgent care visit 3 weeks ago for ankle sprain," Hart said. "No imaging billed. Low amount. The bigger number is an old pediatric surgery balance. The dates don't matter for the fraud, the guarantor switch does. We'll package this for Detective Mendoza. He'll decide next steps." A text came as she spoke. "Mendoza, can you talk?" "I'm here," Henry said into the receiver, then patched Mendoza in the way the world trains you to do even if your hands belong to a man who used to fix carburetors and doesn't believe phones should be this clever. "Mr. Whitaker," Mendoza said, voice quiet. Ms. Hart shared the portal screens. "We'll request a warrant for the devices and for the hospital's access logs. If the guarantor ad is traced to their IP, it's forgery and identity theft, using your name and address without consent to assume debt." "Identity theft," Henry repeated, and the phrase felt like someone had cataloged a betrayal he'd been circling too long without naming. "We've seen parents put bills in grandparents' names when collectors start calling," Mendoza added, clinical, a man inventorying broken glass. "And we've seen them open lines of medical credit in a minor's name." Ms. Hart's note about Aiden Whitaker autofill on a credit application is concerning. A chair scraped in the living room. Aiden peered around the doorway, gauging adult weather. Henry forced air through his chest and made a smile he hoped Aiden could believe. "Popsicles," he said. "Two," Aiden said, and vanished to the freezer. "Detective," Henry said into the phone, "do we tell him any of this?" "Not yet," Mendoza said. "Not until I have records in hand. He's safe. That's the first thing. We'll make the rest into paper and then into court. I'll send a unit to watch the house tonight in case anyone tries to collect belongings. You have your guardianship document?" "On the table," Henry said. "Miss Tan has a copy." "Good," Mendoza said. He exhaled. "I know this is a lot." Henry made a noise that might have been agreement in a different season. "I thought they were going to blame me for a window," he said. "They were moving me under a hospital, too." "They were moving liability," Hart said, still on the line, not apologizing because this was not her apology to give. "We don't always get to call a thing what it is when it happens. We try to, later." They hung up, and the kitchen gave him back his own breath. He stood at the counter and watched Aiden sit at the table and argue with the fox about whether red popsicles were better than orange. He couldn't feel his hands for a second. He put them flat on the wood until they belonged to him again. On the hall stand, the dish gleamed, empty circle where metal had rested, dust laying around it. He imagined his own signature under guarantor, H. Whitaker, crooked because rage can make even a careful man sloppy. He imagined Aiden seeing envelopes with his name and learning it too early in the mailman's hand. He took his phone and typed to Miss Tan, "Do you have a minute to stop by?" She replied, "On my way." She arrived with the binder under her arm and a look Henry had come to recognize, equal parts prepared and sorry. He slid the laptop across and let her read Hart's notes. Ms. Tan's mouth tightened at Aiden Whitaker in the autofill and at the timeline that put a guarantor ad request at 11:21 p.m. while a child slept down the hall from a ring light. "This changes my recommendation," she said quietly. "We were at supervised visitation and services. With attempted guarantor fraud and a draft credit application in a minor's name, we escalate. I'll file for a protective order around the child's identity, SSN lock, credit freeze, hospital notes to require in-person ID with me or you present for any changes." "Do it," Henry said. He didn't feel dramatic. He felt like a man swapping a spare tire for a real one, eyes on the shoulder for glass. She called from his table, voice switching to the crisp vowels of agency talk. She gave Aiden's details, Henry's address, the case number. She said urgent without sounding panicked and used the words parental exploitation like a diagnosis. When she hung up, she touched the standby guardianship form with one finger. "You filing this was the smartest boring thing anyone did this week." "Boring saves lives," Henry said, and surprised himself by smiling. In the evening, Hart sent another email. "Hospital SIU confirms, portal access from Wells Residence Network, guarantor ad request under Lana's email, device name matches phone seized earlier today. They've placed an internal hold, no guarantor changes without in-person verification of state ID plus custody orders. SIU forwarding to PD." An attachment followed, a cropped screenshot, the portal's gray interface, the line guarantor, H. Whitaker, pending, with a red flag icon and a timestamp. Henry saved it to a folder he titled Truth because names mattered now. He printed it and slid it under the guardianship document, as if paper could chaperone paper. After dinner, he took Aiden onto the porch to watch the sky bruise and heal. The boy's foot swung against the step. "Grandpa," he said without looking up. "Is Mom mad at me?" "No," Henry said. It was the easiest true thing he'd said all day. "She's mad at herself, and the world, and none of those things are your fault." Aiden nodded like a small judge. "Okay." They sat until porch lights winked on up and down the block and a patrol car drifted by and didn't stop. Inside, the laptop screen timed out and went black, hiding guarantor, H. Whitaker, pending, the way a lid hides a pot. Across town, in a holding cell that smelled like cleaning fluid and tired, Ryan stared at a phone cradle that would only accept numbers he didn't want to dial. Lana stared at a wall that didn't blink and thought of bills that did. Neither of them thought about the way a pencil loop in medical could become a felony when held in the right light. When Aiden slept, Henry took the ring light from the shelf and carried it to the curb. He didn't smash it even though the urge moved through him like a wave. He left it there in the trash can, stripe of white against black bags, a relic of a way of making stories true with light instead of with choices. He stood under the maple and listened to the neighborhood breathe. In the morning there would be court again, and the slow, professional language would stack itself into a shape that looked like justice. Tonight there was a boy asleep on a couch and a fox commanded by a small hand, and a grandfather learning the exact weight of more than fraud. On the table, the truth folder lay like a modest book. Inside, a blue brim lived in evidence, a key wore a tag, a map traced itself in narrow lines, and a red flag weighted by a name that would never be moved under someone else's bill. The first betrayal had cut glass. The second reached for paper. Both left edges. Morning put a thin, pearly light on the courthouse steps, gum-darkened concrete, a handrail cold as tap water. Inside, everything was the color of Manila, walls, folders, the tired skin under people's eyes. Henry held Aiden's hand until Miss Tan arrived, then let her take the boy to the family room with the blue chairs and the basket of crayons. "I'll be right there," he told Aiden. "Count the fish on the poster for me." The boy nodded like a small, serious mayor and went where he was led. In Department 3, the clock above the bench ticked as if it were the metronome for consequence. Judge Keating read the morning calendar without hurry, a woman who had learned to be both human and furniture. Detective Mendoza sat 2 rows back, suit quiet, notes in order. Hart slid into the same row, a canvas bag at her feet. The camera was gone, but the posture of recording remained. Henry took the end seat, hat in his lap out of habit, not theatrics. The bailiff called the case. People vs. Ryan Wells and Lana Wells, Count 1, attempted insurance fraud, Count 2, tampering with evidence, Count 3, endangering the welfare of a child, Count 4, identity theft pending, charging affidavit filed, arraignment to follow. The last phrase landed like a drawer shutting. Ryan walked in with a public defender and eyes that hadn't slept. Lana followed, hair tied back in a way that made her look younger, which didn't help. They did not look for Henry, they looked for the softest place to put their feet. Keating's gaze moved from file to faces. "Counsel, appearances." "People," the prosecutor said, crisp. "Deputy District Attorney Liao." "Defense," said 2 public defenders in turn. Keating nodded. "All right. Mr. and Ms. Wells, I have read the declaration, the police reports, and the insurer's preliminary notes." "Ms. Liao?" Liao stood. She did not perform. "Your Honor, the people request that bail previously set be maintained, with added conditions: no unsupervised contact with the minor child, surrender of passports, credit freeze orders, no tampering with digital accounts related to the child or the named grandfather, and a stay away from the grandfather's residence. We also request a protective order regarding the child's identity. For the record, identity theft-related charging documents have been filed based on an attempted guarantor change with Children's Regional under the grandfather's name." A flicker moved across Keating's face, something like disappointment, not surprise. "Defense?" Ryan's lawyer stood first. "Your Honor, Mr. Wells has strong community ties, no prior record." The incident arose from financial stress and poor judgment. He denies intent to harm. We request release on recognizance with conditions limited to contact and residence. As to the alleged identity issue, we have not received discovery. We object to conditions predicated on a charge not yet arraigned. Lana's counsel echoed the posture, softer. Ms. Wells is the child's mother. She is engaged in services and prepared to comply with any court-ordered programming. Keating turned a page. Detective Mendoza, step forward. He did, steady. Yes, Your Honor. Briefly, the strength of the people's case? Strong, Mendoza said. We have video of the staged break, the printed call script mentioning the grandfather by name and his blue cap, the insurer's reconstruction video in which both defendants repositioned planted items, and tracker logs from the grandfather's cap showing movement from the hall stand to the garage. Hospital SIU provided portal records of an attempted change listing the grandfather as guarantor and a draft of a medical credit application with the minor's name autofilled. Warrants for devices are pending. Thank you, Keating said. She addressed the defense. I am maintaining bail. I am adding the following: no contact with the minor except supervised through family services, no contact with the grandfather except through counsel, surrender of passports by close of business, proof of initiated credit freezes for both defendants filed by tomorrow, and a standing order that neither defendant access, alter, or create any accounts in the child's name or the grandfather's name. Violation will result in remand. Understood? Yes, Your Honor, the defenders chorused. Ms. Tan slipped in beside Henry and murmured, credit freeze paperwork is ready, we'll file on our end too. Keating continued, voice formal without sharpness. I am issuing a temporary custody order placing the minor with his grandfather, Henry Whitaker, under Ms. Tan's supervision. Services for the parents will include financial counseling, parenting classes, and fraud awareness programming. Review in 30 days. Ryan's shoulders dropped, and for a second the defiant posture he'd carried since the garage simply vacated. Lana covered her mouth. Neither looked toward the blue chair room where Aiden was counting fish that never moved. Liao stood again. Your Honor, there is an offer. In the interest of protecting the child from testifying and in light of early acceptance of responsibility, the people will resolve counts 1 through 3 today, plead to count 1 as a misdemeanor, count 2 as a misdemeanor, count 3 as a gross misdemeanor with a suspended custodial term. Identity theft charge, count 4, will be filed as a felony. The people are willing to consider reduction contingent on restitution, full compliance, and no contact adherence. If accepted now, sentencing may proceed on counts 1 through 3. Ryan's lawyer leaned in hard. Lana's did the same. There was that murmury rustle of attorneys translating law to survival. Ryan glanced back, finally, toward Henry, because boys do, even when they're men, and found no anger in his father's face to push off from. Only a steady surface. We accept, Ryan's lawyer said, voice dry. Lana's counsel echoed it. Keating looked at each defendant in turn and took the ritual answers. Do you understand the rights you're giving up? Yes. Is anyone forcing you? No. Are you pleading because you are, in fact, guilty? Yes, from both, Ragged and Low. She found the box on her form and inked the square. The court accepts the plea. Sentencing happened in the prose of courtrooms, numbers, conditions, edges. On count 1, attempted insurance fraud as a misdemeanor, 1-year probation, restitution to the insurer for investigative costs, fines per schedule. On count 2, evidence tampering, 6 months concurrent, suspended, 200 hours community service to be performed with a non-profit unaffiliated with the family. On count 3, endangering the welfare of a child as a gross misdemeanor, 364 days suspended, anger management and parenting classes, no use of the child in any claim or financial instrument, no social media content involving the child. The suspended terms will hang over you like a sword. Violate any order, and I will cut the thread. We set a status conference in 60 days. Count 4, identity theft, is set for arraignment Friday. Counsel, you may speak with Ms. Liao about negotiations, but assume nothing. Lana made a small noise, part relief that today did not involve handcuffs, part grief that tomorrow still might. Ryan's jaw worked like he was chewing something that would never dissolve. "Mr. Whitaker," Keating said, eyes moving to Henry, "thank you for bringing the video forward and for stepping in for the child. I am signing orders authorizing you to place a credit freeze on the child's behalf and to be listed as point of contact for medical and school records. Ms. Tan will coordinate." Henry didn't stand, he nodded once. "Yes, Your Honor." "Last thing," Keating added, and something like the teacher in her peeked through the robe. "To both defendants, if you love your child the way I suspect you do not make him wear the weight of your decisions. There are forms you can fill out today that are harder than any script you wrote. Fill those. Do not write your son into your debts." The gavel was a small, soft sound. The bailiff called the next case as if this one would evaporate now that it had been spoken. In the blue chair room, Aiden had covered the fish poster with counted circles of crayon, each fish a little universe of his own color. Miss Tan crouched. "You ready to go home with Grandpa? Does the fox come?" Aiden asked, testing reality's edges. "The fox always comes," Miss Tan said. "It's in the statute." Henry knelt and let Aiden climb his arm with the ease of habit. In the hallway, they passed Mendoza and Hart. "We'll be in touch," Hart said, lifting the canvas bag in a quiet salute. "We'll send the tracker export and portal logs to your folder." "Folder's called Truth," Henry said. "It's a good name," Hart replied. Outside, the air had warmed. On the courthouse steps, Ryan and Lana stood with their lawyers, talking in tones that tried not to look like pleading. Ryan's eyes brushed Henry's again. No words came. He lifted his hands in a small, helpless echo of a shrug and let them fall. Lana looked at Aiden and then looked away, as if looking too long would set something on fire inside her she couldn't put out in public. Henry adjusted Aiden on his hip. The boy's fingers found the frayed edge of the blue cap Henry had reclaimed from evidence that morning with a receipt and an officer's dry joke about fashion. "Sharp brim," Aiden said. "It remembers where it's been," Henry answered. He didn't say more. They walked to the car through a day that looked like any other: delivery trucks, pigeons, a woman arguing cheerfully with her parking app. In the rearview mirror, the courthouse door reflected small figures becoming smaller. Henry buckled Aiden in and watched the clip click home. On the way back to the house, the radio played an old song with a simple chorus about telling the truth sooner. Aiden hummed without knowing it. The maple out front lifted its leaves in a breeze that hadn't existed a block before. On the kitchen table, the truth folder waited next to a stack of forms Ms. Tan had already highlighted. Henry set the cap on the hook by the door. It hung there like an ordinary thing again. Before lunch, he and Aiden watered the planter. Dirt went dark and released that smell of living stuff that forgives. Aiden tapped the edge of the pot with a plastic trowel. "Do you think the flowers heard the judge?" he asked, solemn. Henry rinsed the trowel and leaned it to dry. "I think they heard a door open," he said. "Some things grow better after that." Behind that line, unspoken but felt, a new door waited, the one marked Friday, where identity would sit in a different light. But today had been its own judgment. Today, the first story had been named out loud in a room that made names stick. And in the next chapter, the one the garden already knew how to write, something else would push up through the cut soil and make the ending make sense. By the time the sun slid low behind the maple, the house had the careful quiet of a room after guests leave, chairs nudged in, the truth folder squared to the table's edge, Aiden's fox posted on the couch arm like a sentry with soft ears. Ms. Tan had stapled fresh orders to Henry's standby guardianship, credit freezes, school records, no accounts opened in the child's name without in-person ID. She'd underlined in-person twice. Aiden watered the planter until the soil blackened and sweet earth rose. "Do flowers like judges?" he asked, and Henry said, "They like light, because some answers have to be simple if they're going to be true." The phone rang. "Hart." "Two things," she said, voice all business, all care. 1. Children's Regional SIU sent logs. The guarantor ad came from Lana's phone on the Wells home Wi-Fi at 11:21 p.m. Wednesday. It stalled because of a verification rule Ms. Tan just locked in. We're forwarding to Detective Mendoza. Henry braced for the second thing without knowing its shape. 2. When we imaged her phone, we found a folder in cloud storage, scenedress_v5.zip. Inside are multiple claim kits, towel placement tips, ring light settings, call script variants. There's a spreadsheet titled Home Inventory, High Value with tabs named ours, Maya, Rafi, Kendra. Each has a column called Blame Angle. One suggests forgetful older relative with spare key plus blue cap. The language matches your printout. There are watermarked PDFs in there from a private Telegram group, Hustle Break-ins. Lana's handle appears as a moderator. Ms. Liao is adding conspiracy to commit insurance fraud to the charging tree. Henry stared at the wall until the paint's tiny roller marks came into focus. He thought of the towel, laid out before the glass, of the ring light humming like an appliance that didn't know it was complicit, of the line blue cap underlined in pencil as if the shape of him could be rehearsed into guilt. Hart wasn't done. There's a Nextdoor thread last month, anonymous user posting, older man wandering at night in blue cap, check your locks. IP traces back to the Wells network. It reads like preceding suspicion. Aiden banged dirt off his trowel, a small percussion. Henry set the phone down face up, the screen still glowing with Hart's email summary, a tidy list of ugly things. He called Mendoza. The detective's voice came in low. We have it. We'll roll the conspiracy piece to the DA. Mr. Wells' counsel asked about a proffer, cooperation in exchange for leniency on the identity count. He says Lana ran the kid hustle, he filmed, carried boxes, said yes too often. He'll hand us chat logs and receipts. Henry leaned on the counter with both palms, a man who knew the shape of wrenches and not of this. What happens to her? She carries more weight, Mendoza said. But cooperation cuts both ways. If he gave names in that telegram, it's bigger than your garage. Henry looked at the blue cap on the hook. He didn't feel triumph. He felt the strange, inevitable click of a pattern explaining itself. Do it, he said. If Ryan tells the whole truth, let that count. Understood. They came that night with a printer-hot addendum, conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. An officer stood on the porch and read words that turned air into paperwork. Ms. Liao's email followed with a neat paragraph about proffers and truthfulness and consequences if the river runs muddy. Later, a different room, different light, Ryan sat across from a camera in a windowless interview space and did the hardest thing adults do when they've built houses from lies. He named lumber. He confirmed the telegram handle. He named the tabs in home inventory, high value. He said blue cap and winced when the microphone didn't let the flinch cover the word. He admitted to walking the towel out like a waiter setting a table. He said, it wasn't my idea, and then, because the detective didn't let that sentence stand alone, added, I did it anyway. Lana's lawyer watched her face lock in the way people's faces lock when the thing they've been outrunning turns and sits down on their chest. She asked for water. She didn't ask for a break until Aiden's name came up, and then she asked twice. In court 2 days later, the Friday that had been hiding in Thursday's last paragraph, identity theft was arraigned as a felony, conspiracy, 2. The proffer landed where it could, Ryan's identity count held, but the DA marked it eligible for reduction if he kept talking and never lied again. Lana's counts stacked in a column that looked tall even without jail. Ms. Tan slid Henry the forms to freeze Aiden's credit with the big 3 bureaus. Henry signed with a hand that shook once and then steadied. Keating authorized the freezes and wrote in black ink, "No credit lines may be opened for the minor without court order." The strange thing about the heavy twist was how inevitable it felt once someone said it out loud. Of course the ring light wasn't about light, it was about production. Of course the towel wasn't about safety, it was about staging. Of course the blue cap wasn't a detail, it was a recipe, one they'd shared. That night, when the house exhaled, Henry took the old heirloom watch from his desk drawer, the one Lana had photographed empty for her inventory with the melodrama of a stage prop. He turned it over. Months ago, on Aiden's 8th birthday, he'd had a jeweler etch AW in tiny letters inside the case and filed a gift letter naming it Aiden's when he turned 18. He placed the letter in the truth folder and added a sticky note in his square hand. Stolen missing item belongs to child. Another thread stitched. On Sunday, Hart came by without the windbreaker, her hair in a knot, a canvas bag still at her feet because some habits pay rent. She handed Henry a thumb drive. Tracker export. Portal screenshots. Telegram captures. If you pursue a civil case for defamation over the Nextdoor posts, these help. She hesitated. There's one more piece. We've been trading notes with other carriers. Your family's kit wording matches 2 other small-value claims in the county, same towel language, same forgetful older relative angle. Both went to special investigation and died there. No charges filed, low dollars. But it's a line. Prosecutors like lines. Henry nodded, feeling the weight settle in a place he could carry. Thank you. She stopped in the doorway and looked toward the yard where Aiden had lined up seed packets like soldiers. I can't say this in a report, she said, but today was saved by 3 boring, beautiful things. You called early, you kept receipts, and you did not improvise. I like boring, Henry said. It leaves room for the important things. When she left, he found Aiden in the garage doorway, tracing his finger along the new pane's putty line. Does glass remember being broken? The boy asked. It remembers the hands, Henry said. Everything does. They planted wildflowers along the fence again, because repetition can be healing when it isn't lying. Aiden pressed seeds into the earth and patted them with the flat seriousness of someone making a promise. Henry labeled the row with a plant marker in his neat print, proof. A month turned its pages. Restitution payments began, small electronic ticks that emptied from Ryan and Lana's accounts into a trust Ms. Tan had helped Henry open in Aiden's name. The court order made it simple and brutal. Every dollar they owed went where they had tried to aim debt. Community service hours stacked, Lana, at a thrift store donation dock, Ryan, sweeping leaves in a park he used to cut through without seeing. Parenting classes, financial counseling, fraud programming, the syllabus of adults who had mistaken clever for good. On a Wednesday evening that smelled like rain and laundry, Lana asked through counsel for a supervised visit. Ms. Tan arranged it in the family center with the fish poster and the blue chairs. Aiden came in with his fox under one arm and his other hand gripping Henry's thumb. Lana sat very straight and looked at her son and then at her lap, and when she spoke, she didn't reach for scripts. I'm sorry, she said. We told a story that hurt you. We made you hold it up. That wasn't your job. Aiden's face worked, small muscles doing big things. You told me not to tell Grandpa, he said, a simple, hard sentence. I did, she said, and let the ugliness of it rest in air. I won't again. She didn't ask for forgiveness. Ms. Tan watched the room soften a degree. Ryan came the next week, thinner in the face, voice unshowy. I told the truth in court, he said to Aiden. All of it. That's part of fixing it. He brought no gifts, he brought a printed schedule of his community service hours and set it on the table like a child laying down homework. It was the first true thing Henry had seen him put on a table in months. When spring finally took a breath, Judge Keating signed the permanent orders, custody with Henry, visitation a ladder the parents would climb one rung at a time. The identity theft count, whittled by cooperation, landed on Ryan as a felony reduced to a misdemeanor at sentencing with conditions. It stayed a felony for Lana. The conspiracy count carried its own weight on her back. Ms. Liao didn't gloat. She simply checked boxes. The last scene didn't happen in a courtroom. It happened in a garage that smelled like motor oil and crushed grass. Henry hung the blue cap on the hook. He set the old watch, AW hidden inside, back in the desk. He slid the truth folder into the safe with a new label, Proof Plus Plan. On top of it, he placed a single page he drafted in the plainest words he owned, Letter of Conditions. It named what had to be true for any door back into Aiden's daily life to open wider, completed courses, paid restitution, no lies for 6 months, a conversation in this garage with no scripts, no ring lights, no towel. He left the safe open and looked at the workbench scar where Ryan had missed a nail at 12. He touched that dent, a small hollow where the boy had learned what bites and fathers don't. He felt anger, old, clean, and then something quieter that wasn't forgiveness yet but wasn't nothing. Out back, the wildflowers came up in spears, then leaves, then small, stubborn faces. Aiden crouched to inspect them like a foreman. "They heard the judge," he announced, satisfied. "They heard you," Henry said. "You told the truth." It echoes. The twist the story saved for last didn't crash through a window. It didn't roar. It stood there quietly the whole time. They hadn't only tried to steal money, they had tried to borrow Henry's name and tape it over their debts, to teach a child that family is a tool. The revenge was not just the arrests or the charges, it was taking their script and flipping its last page, turning Blue Cap from scapegoat into witness, turning medical bills from alibi into protection, turning inventory into a ledger where every stolen thing was returned in hours, in apologies, in trust built one unremarkable day at a time. At dusk, Henry and Aiden carried a hose to the fence. The water hissed and darkened the soil. A patrol car ghosted past the corner without slowing. Somewhere, a neighbor closed a grill lid. Henry felt the weight of the cap on the hook behind him, ordinary again. "Grandpa?" Aiden said, voice small in the good way, sleepy around the edges. "Yes, kiddo. Promise we won't be pretend anymore?" Henry smiled, that tired, bright smile you get after a long shift when the machine finally runs true. "Promise," he said. "Only real from here on." They watched the flowers drink. The house held its shape. And the truth, recorded, planted, tended, stood up and stayed.